Have you ever noticed that most overweight children usually have overweight parents? Kind of makes you think it might be genetic. But have you also noticed that most overweight families tend to have overweight pets, which is obviously not genetic. So what's going on here? Is it the genes' fault? Well, yeah, there is, in a really small percentage, maybe 1 or 2% can be tied to some defective gene somehow. But most of it's lifestyle related. Most of it has to do with what we're eating. It has to do with our activity levels. It's what we inherit through our traditions, not through our genes. It's our traditions that are getting us in trouble. So for some of y'all, it might be those cheese pierogies you're eating. I remember my first cheese pierogi. Boy, wasn't that a yummy thing to eat. Never even knew what one was. I was in my early 20s. One of my neighbors, a little Polish cow, helped her make some one day. Boil a bunch of potatoes and add some cheese to it, and then you deep fry it or something like that. Really tasty. But God, I can't imagine anything gooing up the system more than anything else. So if you're going to think about obesity, you don't want to limit it to fat. There's 7 major components of weight. The biggest one that's getting us in trouble is what Victor Hugo called a serpent. And you don't inherit that serpent. You eat it by putting in wrong food that takes too long to go through that food tube. Can't think of 2 food items combined that are going to stick up your intestines more than starchy potatoes and gooey cheese. My God. Milk, dairy, cow's milk has 3 times the amount of casein as does mother's milk, human milk. And that's the main ingredient they use to make gluten. So it's very sticky. And then what does it take? Is it 15 gallons of milk to make 1 pound of cheese? Boy, I used to think I was eating healthy when I was eating cheese. Seems like I should be able to sue somebody. All that money I wasted thinking I was eating so healthy. Put some of that cheese on my baked potato and broccoli or whatever. Used a lot. Sandwiches. My friends, don't blame your problems on your genes. Blame them on what your parents taught you. You can blame it on your parents, but it's not the genes, it's the false information you were given. Now, I'm watching the sun just go down below me, or below those trees rather. See about that much left of it. I almost don't even want to say anything. I haven't been out here in a while, been able to see the sun going down like that. To digress a little more, if you can see the flow of that current down there, it's really exciting because this bayou is getting down lower to a point where this pool of water off to the side is being sucked back into the bayou at the end. Went by this morning and it wasn't doing that, and right now it is, so that's real exciting for me. So I'm not going to have much light. I don't see the sun at all anymore. It's behind a tree, although I can still see me in the picture. So I'm going to be winding this down. Anyway, it's an interesting thought to think about it. You know, why are these pets overweight? You know, are you feeding your pets some of those pierogies? I'm not picking on any race of people here now. Every culture has their bad food. Every one of them is eating dead food, cooked food. It's part of our traditions. It's one of the biggest problems we face as a species. It's how we start our journey off in life, with our traditions. If you grew up in certain countries or certain ethnic groups of people, there are those traditional foods you grew up with, and there's a whole lot more associated with those than just the yummy factor. A lot of memories associated with that. That's what makes changing so hard. I'm watching all these big birds fly around me right now. because they're taking advantage of this, the water draining. Whenever they see that, that's where they, I guess, are able to do their best fishing. And there are a lot of fish out here. So, forgive me for being distracted by nature right now. I've really missed coming out here. And this is one thing I don't get to see very often. Saw a blue herring earlier when I was out here. And there are a lot of blue herrings that are up along this area. So, nature or nurture? I'm not digressing. I can tie it together somehow. Yeah, we can blame genetics to an extent. We do inherit weaknesses. That's usually how a disease symptom manifests. But the determining factor is not the genes, it's the lifestyle choices. If we don't keep making the same choices our parents make, we won't age like them. You might think, well, my parents look pretty good. Now, some of us can get away with that pretty easily, but we got to be a lot older to make that happen. Can't say, well, look at Grandma, she lived to be 100. That doesn't work anymore. A lot of grandparents grew up eating organic food. There were no chemicals being used to poison us like there are now. Like my grandmother, interestingly, my mother's mother, she made it to 100. And I'll never forget one day my mom was crying, and I asked her, why are you crying, Mom? And she says, Grammy's not eating. She refuses to eat. She's starving herself. And she, in my memories of my grandmother, she was a big woman. But she apparently knew about fasting, got down real skinny, made it to 100. And darn it, my mom died right when I was just getting into this. Came so close. She died about 3 months after my very first solid food vacation. So close to really changing her life totally around. And she would have been on board with us, I can guarantee you. She'd be alive right now. My God, she'd be 98 right now. I can guarantee you my mom would be alive right now if I would have found raw food maybe 2 years earlier and had a chance to really understand the power of a solid food vacation. I would have got my mom to do it, and she would have done it. I remember telling her when I first got into this, she said, I can eat this way. I like eating nothing but a salad. And I could digress and go into another story, but I won't do that. I've digressed way too many times already on this video. The main thing is don't blame your parents for everything. There may be a defective gene in there, but a lot of you all know. In fact, I met a woman just the other day. Stopped me on the street. I was riding down Westheimer. Hi, Melanie. And she pulled over a waiter for me and was telling me about how she was raised eating pork chops and how she was working at a juice bar now and how she was embracing this lifestyle and didn't want to go the same way her parents were. And she told me, yeah, I got real big parents. It's how I was raised. So more and more of us are waking up to this reality, and it's exciting. Boy, I tell you, that made my day to have someone pull over and get out, and would have given you a big hug if I wasn't all sweaty. But I've been meaning to give you a shout out for some time. Great example of someone waking up to the reality that we don't have to keep making mistakes. We can change. We can be the best that we can be. And that's the only way we're ever going to have a treat.